Hey, Tommy from the Run Testers. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at some of the shoes we're expecting or hoping to come up across the next few months in 2024. So these are shoes that we don't necessarily know anything about, but shoes that we expect might be turning up based on the lines and how often they are released over the years. So we're going to be talking about some of those shoes and what we hope to see in a new version of those. This video is also the podcast as well, so if you're planning on listening to the podcast, maybe don't watch this video. Right, let's dive in and see what we're all hoping to turn up over the next few months. Alright guys, how's it going?
Yeah, good.
Really good.
Well, we're almost halfway through the year now, and we've seen quite a lot of interesting shoes crop up. Some really good ones, some that were probably a bit of a disappointment for us. But we have another 7 months left of the year, and there's a lot of shoes that might appear. So in this video, we're going to talk through some of the shoes that we know are coming or we've heard might be coming, and some shoes that we'd expect to be coming. And I'm going to be going through these shoes, and we're going to talk about what our views on the shoe, if it exists already, and what we hope to see in the development of a new version of that shoe if it appears in 2024. That sound clear?
Very clear. Let's do it.
Good, because I came up with this concept quite quickly and I wasn't sure if it actually worked. All right, so I have been through various forums. I have been through websites talking about shoes that we are expected to come up over the next year. Some of them have been confirmed. Some of them probably haven't been confirmed. So all of these shoes, I should clarify, we don't know anything about these shoes. And anything that we're suggesting about them is based purely on our knowledge of the existing shoe and what we'd like to see from these shoes. So we don't have any extra knowledge about what's going to happen with these shoes. We've not had any information sent to us. This is purely the stuff that we think might happen. All right, so let's start with a shoe that over the past year it's become it's changed quite a lot. So the Asics Gel-Kayano 31, the Asics Gel-Kayano 30 came out last year, and it saw some massive developments on the previous versions of the shoe. What are your views on the Asics Gel-Kayano range?
I mean, I think it was a step in the right direction in terms of, obviously in terms of where stability shoes are going, where support shoes are going. I think it was a big shoe in terms of that category, in terms of how it delivered that support. And I think, the Kayano has always been, it's an iconic kind of shoe line in Asics range. And I think in terms of what it did with the 30 and where it took it, I think it's almost going to dictate or kind of influence what we're going to see from other support shoes going forward. Particularly, it's kind of what we're seeing in terms of people or kind of brands kind of delivering that kind of stability in shoes now, just in a very different way to what we're kind of traditionally used to.
So it's a bit more subtle, right? That was the idea, is that it's basically making, and this I think it's sort of fascinating idea that we're going to get, everybody arguably needs a little bit of stability in some way or other, and we're going to see shoe manufacturers trying to deliver stability that works with us and in a more subtle way. And I think the Kayano tried to hit that. I found it, to the point where I don't really need a stability shoe, and there are some stability shoes I'll run in and I find them quite interruptive, if that's the right word. And the Kayano I found quite easy to run in as a non-stability runner.
Yeah, the Kayano 30 was basically a massive shift, because previously the Kayano's been sort of the big daddy of full-on support. You sort of associated the older Kayanos with having that really thick plasticky medial post in it where you really know you've got a stability shoe on. But Kayano 30 was an interesting development because it felt a bit softer. It felt like a normal shoe. It's actually getting more like the Nimbus or shoes like that. So to be honest, I wouldn't expect any big changes from the Gel-Kayano 31. I think they've probably pushed it as far as they can at the moment. I mean, they might get they might modify the foam slightly, but I think we're going to see a pretty similar thing to what we saw with the Nimbus, Gel Nimbus 25 and 26, where they probably play around with it a bit, but I'm not expecting any major advancements in the new version.
Yeah, I think the key thing is, like you kind of said, like that gel represented how kind of Asics delivered that stability and support, and now it's about delivering it from different areas of the shoe. And I think ultimately it's about enhancing how it's delivering that structure and support from the different areas and the different elements of the shoe, I think, more effectively, and still offering a ride that actually, as Kieran said, that it can work or, you know, be usable for someone that maybe doesn't need that additional sort of kind of more aggressive, maybe more kind of prominent support in a shoe.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next shoe, and this is one that I'm sure you're going to have many views on, the Hoka Rocket X3. I know that's a few that you've tested this, haven't you, Kieran?
Yeah. I like it. I mean, I've been a fan. I know some people aren't, but whenever I've raced in it and I've wanted to go short, you know, half marathons, those kind of things, I've found it nice and lively, and it's and punchy, and I feel like it's a very easy shoe to go and do those distances in. It delivers. Whether or not it's up there with the best sort of super shoes, I don't know, but it does have this kind of sort of unique kind of profile, which is quite direct. It's quite, you know, again, reliant on a rocker, and I've always found it to be quite energetic, and it kind of fits my kind of style of running, where I want to feel a bit of ground contact as well sometimes, and feel like I'm sort of doing some of the work. But whether or not I guess that the thing throw it out there is whether or not in the changes they look at everyone else who's got perhaps a bigger stack and it's a bit more kind of trampoliny and those kind of things, and they go, actually, we need to do more of that. I don't know, but
well, they are trying a bit more of that stuff, aren't they, at the moment, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, obviously, from the previous Rocket, it's a radical change in terms of that shoe and what we have now, the Rocket X2. And I think if we look at shoes that have launched since the Rocket X2, so things like the Cielo X1, the Skyward X, where, you know, they're not necessarily the same shoe, but in terms of playing around, or, you know, in terms of how those midsole makeups are, I think it feels to me with the Cielo X1 and the Rocket X2, it's almost like a Vaporfly, Alphafly thing. So whether they'll go down that direction with this shoe or the next version of the shoe, I'm not entirely sure. I think they might try to retain it as it is and maybe just try to kind of slightly improve the experience, because it's a nice and light shoe. It's got a lovely, enjoyable ride in it. I kind of personally think maybe I would probably kind of max out kind of half marathon distance in it for racing, but I think there obviously are people that have run marathons in it. So I think it's about tweaking what Hoka's got, because I think in terms of what we've seen the shoes since then, it's definitely being a bit, I would say, a bit more adventurous in terms of what it's doing with its midsoles and in general with the kind of makeup of some of its kind of more race focused, kind of faster centric kind of shoes.
I think they're going to stick more foam in it. That's just as simple as that, I think. Because I think they made a good choice moving it from the X to the X2. But I think they're going to say, well, one of the big things that people said about it is that it's not as bouncy as some of the bigger shoes out there. So that would be my expectation.
The thing is that's something that, you know, Mike's right. You know, people sort of equate that shoe. A lot of people sort of said it feels a little bit more like the old Vaporfly, and that was a positive comment. And that the Vaporfly 3, for some people, I find it lost a little bit of that sort of really sort of stiff and slightly direct kind of edge to it. So it'd be interesting. I hope they don't. I hope they sort of, maybe that sells more shoes if they do. But
all right, let's talk about from race shoe to a super trainer, the New Balance Super Comp Trainer V3. You remember the V2?
I remember the V2. I mean, I didn't absolutely love that shoe. I thought I would. And I mean, I've been post kind of us kind of reviewing it on the channel. I have been back out in it, I felt like it was a shoe that should work for me, but it just didn't. And I think there was probably other shoes that have come out around the New Balance kind of range around that shoe that I think probably worked a bit better for those types of runs that I think I would turn to for the SC Trainer V2. So I think for the V3, I think I would want to see it more in the kind of ilk of something like the Super Blast, where I think there's a bit of a better balance in terms of that overall weight, but also in terms of that versatility that you're going to get from that shoe. I think I didn't feel like I got that from the SC Trainer V2, and I was really hoping I would, because I felt like it felt like it would be best, perfectly built for that, but it didn't quite work out. And I think for the SC Trainer V3, I'm hoping that it it sits a little bit more in that kind of, versatile super trainer kind of mold, which actually you're going to want to run a mixture of, runs and paces in it, and it will kind of deliver a really nice experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, the way that I would classify the V2 is that it was a little bit of a sloppy super trainer for me. It was comfortable. You could do a few different things in it, but it sat in this weird realm where I wouldn't use it for easy day runs because I had easy day shoes that I preferred for it. I wouldn't use it for faster training sessions because I just have more responsive, faster shoes that did it better. So I never really found a use for that shoe. It was definitely improvement on the original version, which was very bulky and just wasn't great for long sessions. But I'd like to see a little bit more pop in it, a little bit more like it's moving towards like the Speed 4 or something like that, where you can use it for a faster stuff.
I think what we've seen as well is that, you've got something like the 1080 V13 and you've got something like the Rebel V4, and those two shoes, if you kind of combine those into an SC Trainer V3 and give you something that you can ease off but also pick the pace up in, then it would be the ultimate, it would be a great shoe, because we've loved those two shoes, and I think an amalgamation of those two shoes would make the ideal kind of SC Trainer.
You haven't tried it, have you, Kieran?
No, actually, I don't think I didn't try either of the generations, so yeah.
I'm not sure you'd like those shoes based on your preferences.
Yeah.
All right, this is an exciting one if it is actually ever going to be released. Nike Pegasus Turbo 4. So the previous version of this is probably not technically the previous version that you would expect. That was the Nike Peg Turbo Next Nature, which is a shoe that used a reformed ZoomX foam, recycled ZoomX foam. It was not in any way a progression of the original Nike Turbo, but this new one, the Nike Pegasus Turbo 4, it would be very, very nice if it was a progression of that. What was it? Nike Turbo 1 and 2. They were, weren't they, when they came out? What are your views on these shoes, and what are you hoping from these?
I love those shoes. I mean, I love the turbos back in the, remember the pink stripe down the middle, sort of the tongue. That's the right shoe, isn't it? Yeah. They were just, they were lovely. I think that was a shoe that you could do so many different runs in as well, and they were nice and snappy. They were they felt super light, really energetic, but not overly aggressive in a crazy way. They were just easy, and I thought sort of effortless, good comfort on the foot. They ticked so many boxes. Like I found myself running lots and lots of miles in those shoes across a range of paces. And it's always been a question about why they killed them off in the first place. I know some conspiracy theorists thought that they were too good, they were too versatile, so they weren't going to. They were trying to differentiate in the market of other shoes. This kind of multi-talented shoe stopped them selling other shoes, but. I think if they're going to bring it back, just bring it back as it was.
Well, it is interesting to say that. So I actually did do. I can't remember. I think it was last year I did a Versus, because I've still got a fairly new. I used it like twice. The original Nike Peg Turbo 2, and I went out for running it, and it doesn't hold up against. I mean, there's probably an element of it that it was a couple of years old, but it compared to things like the Saucony Dorking Speed 3 and 4, it was. Just didn't have the same feel as those shoes. So I think they will have to do something to it to make it match up to those. Even if you put it up against something like the Hoka Mac 5, I haven't tested the 6. It just didn't feel like it had as much in it as those shoes. So they're definitely going to need to do something with it. Whether that's just the progression of how ZoomX is these days, but who knows? They might even put like a plate in it or something to match up with things like the Speed 4.
Was it like meeting an ex, Tom? An old ex?
I tested it during Berlin training, so I was pretty fit. I was doing a lot of like intervals and stuff, and I ran in it and I thought, this just feels like a normal shoe. I was expecting so much. I was so excited to put it on, because I forgot I had them. It was in the bottom of my drawer. And I thought, I've still got those. I bang them out. Although the ones were nicer than the twos from my memory. I think the twos did lose a bit from the original one. The original one, I got loads of my first ever 40 minute. I think that's what I wore for my first ever sub 40 10K with you, actually, Kieran. So I love that shoe, but I think the two did lose a bit. But yeah, it wasn't as wasn't as enjoyable as I was hoping.
And that's it. Can they recreate the magic? I mean, I don't know. And back then, obviously, I think a lot of people loved them, and maybe things have moved on now, and maybe they shouldn't bring it back. I don't know. I really like the geometry of it. I quite like the overall kind of shape of the shoe and everything. It was another one where it was unfussy when you put it on, and it just, the platform felt just right in terms of the width and the weight. And can they recreate that with new foams?
It's risky, isn't it? It's risky because if it's not as good as people remember, and to be honest, it's a bit of an unfair comparison these days because people are looking back going, it's the best shoe ever. But to bring the new one out and people go, no, don't like it, because I saw what happened with the Next Nature, even though it wasn't really a direct development. All right, here's a good one for you. I think, Mike, you're the only one who's tested the original one. These Asics Magic Speed 4.
Yeah, I mean, this is a shoe that every iteration, I think clearly Asics has listened and tried to, really take on board what this shoe needs to be. And, it's very much in that speedy daily trainer criteria. And I think from the first shoe, I think it was a good shoe, but it was a lot it needed to do. It massively improved in the second version. And then I think the third version, we got something that, is what we wanted in terms of that kind of partner shoe for kind of Asics, kind of like, top tier racing shoes that it has. And you could do your speedy sessions in that shoe. And it was a really nice experience. So I think, when you're looking what, Asics has done in terms of the Metaspeed Sky Paris, we all kind of love that on the channel. We've all kind of running that. We know we can see what Asics can do in terms of speed shoes and those faster shoes. And I think with the Magic Speed 4, I am expecting big things because I think, we're also seeing in terms of what they're doing with the Super Glass and that being a kind of a surprise hit for Asics as well. They've got these shoes around that kind of quick up tempo kind of category where I think having something that's going to be a lot closer to things like the Endorphin Speed, the Max 6, where I think the Magic Speed 3 was a quick shoe, maybe not quite there in terms of the versatility of things like the Speed 4 and the Max 6, but I think there's all the hallmarks there that Asics can make this a standout kind of, up-tempo daily trainer shoe, like the ones, to match the ones that we really like.
Yeah, it's a tricky one though with Asics now because they're of course launching the Super Blast 2 at some point, and so they're starting to get a couple of shoes that are difficult to choose between. Although I don't know what the price would be for the. I'm assuming the price of Super Blast 2 when it comes out will be quite pricey, but the Magic Speed is a bit cheaper, isn't it? Or it was the Magic Speed 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
No, I was going to say that's the thing. That affordability point of view as well. Having those shoes at that price point. Around things like the New Balance Rebel V4 is, but it's good value. So hopefully they can maintain that for when they decide to launch the update to that shoe.
Okay, what about, this is going to be an area of debate, Nike Invincible 4. It's a shoe that over the past few versions, I think the first time it came out, everyone was so excited because the concept was quite weird, like, Zoom X foam in a massive daily max cushion shoe. And then since then, sort of got less and less excited as new versions come out. What do we want to see from the Nike Invincible 4?
I don't know whether I should say anything about this.
No, we need Jane on this.
It's a funny shoe because I talked to a lot of people about it, and there's so many people will be like, I absolutely love. They'll tell me, I love this shoe. This is one of my favorite shoes ever. And for a certain group of runners, it's got that kind of following. It's got like a bit of a cult following. They really, really love it, and I just couldn't get along with it. And I one thing I wanted to see changed. I just found, for a start, that the big kind of wide. It was almost like when you look down, it was like a sort of hexagonal platform. It was just too wide, and I felt like it was too interruptive. It kind of interfered with my sort of natural gait, and it was a bit too clumpy and a bit too clunky. But I think all of those things that I don't like about it that I would like to see improved are the things that other people really love about it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's another one where they probably shouldn't change too much. I think it's one of those in danger that you might actually alienate the people who are very, very, very fond of that shoe. And it does a great job as it is. There are some shoes that you think, actually, should you just leave it as is? And maybe that's one of them.
I think the Invincible's got a bit of an identity crisis over its development. When it first came out, the whole purpose of that shoe was just to be ridiculously soft and bouncy and enjoyable and fun. But obviously, when you do that, you end up with a lack of stability. So you start adding more stability elements in and trying to like beef up the shoe a little bit so that it's a bit more stable. So in reality, it's become this sort of weird mix of the two. And I want it to be softer. I just want it to go as soft as possible, with a little bit of bounce in it, because that's essentially what I use that shoe for. Really slow runs. I just want to go out and do a 5-10k and just enjoy it. But what it's doing now is sort of, it's not being a particularly good soft cushion shoe, and it's not being a particularly good versatile daily shoe. So I think it's got to make a call which way it wants to go. Although if it stays the same, I think it's gonna struggle.
Yeah, and I think the best way to I kind of think about it is that when we're having this conversation between ourselves about the shoe the category that it sits in, I kind of forget about it. I kind of forget about it because I think there are other shoes that can do that job in a slightly better way, and I think ultimately that's what Nike has a problem with. There's that thing they've kind of tempered what the first version really offered, and I think as it's evolved, it's maybe not evolved, but maybe in the right way. I think there's every opportunity for them to make this, I think, a shoe. And when you see what's happening in this space with these types of shoes, and they've got an amazing foam there, so they're absolutely capable of doing that. And yeah, I feel like this would be the ideal shoe for me, but it's just not a shoe that has worked its way into my rotation. And I know loads of people love it, but I think I think you're right. I think maybe there's a bit of identity crisis. Maybe they need to just kind of strip things back, get back to what the Invincible really stood out for.
I'd love to know how many they've sold, because I bet you it's a popular shoe.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, just look, because people want Nike, and it's got a massive stack in it. So you can go into a shop and go, "That's for me."
Like, does it? The shoe that sort of jumps to mind is like, where does it fit up alongside? So I'm thinking other things that have maybe moved it on, and people thinking about the Skyward X or whatever. Is that? And am I putting that in the ballpark?
Well, I've not used a Skyward X, but I sincerely doubt it's comparable with that shoe.
I think you're looking at things like I think things like the Nimbus, the 1080 V13. That's where it should be, and I feel like that's the category we should be talking more about it. But I feel like we haven't really, and I think there's obviously reasons for that. So, like you said, Tom, I think like they almost need to simplify things and be very clear about what that shoe is about. But like I said, people will still buy it, but maybe just enhancing the experience of what you should get from that shoe is what needs to happen.
It's a very expensive shoe for a shoe that's got a difficulty explaining what it does and why you'd buy it. But so from the Invincible to a shoe that I'm very excited about, New Balance More V5. Now I'm quite worried about this because 3 and 4 are like two of my favourite shoes. The foam, the Fresh Foam, I can't remember if it's Fresh Foam X in that shoe, but basically the New Balance More V3, when I tested that, I wasn't expecting to like it because I didn't like the 1080 V11 and 12 because that foam in it is just really firm. I just didn't get anything from it. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't soft. It was just like a balanced foam that had a little bit of firmness in it. And as a result, it was just like a nothingy shoe. Like it didn't really deliver. It wasn't a great daily shoe that you could do versatile training. It wasn't particularly cushioned. But the New Balance More V3 has the same foam in it because it's got loads more foam in it. It just works. It just feels a bit softer. And the New Balance More V4 is pretty much the same. Love that shoe. I'm worried that the New Balance More V5 is going to use the same foam as 1080 V13, and it's going to be way too soft because it's a max stack shoe. So I'm quite worried about what's going to happen with the More V5.
I'm going to keep my mouth quiet because maybe I might have know a little bit about.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Moving on.
All right. Okay. Right. Final shoe, and this is one that I would definitely say is due a big update. It's the Saucony Kinvara Pro 2.
Oh wow! Okay.
What do you? I can't remember. Kieran, you take this one because I think you had a different view to me. On this year.
What can I say about the Kinvara Pro? My abiding memory of this shoe when we tested it, I actually took it out and as one of 3 shoes that I used to run the Berlin Wall 100 miler last year, and I chose it primarily because of that big sort of soft cushion stack that I thought would offer some comfort overall. And I used it as the middle shoe, I think, for about 30 miles. I can't remember what my first shoe. I think I've gone from one of the On shoes, and actually, the noticeable sort of change in when I used that it was too much. It was too soft. I found it sort of dragged me down. I didn't get on with it at all. It's one of those shoes I kind of think I found it okay, but a bit too much shoe on the foot overall. And again, I don't know. I'm not quite sure where it sits. I think there are other shoes within the range that can do its job better at easier pace, and for a range of runs with versatility. So, I wasn't. Yeah, I wish I'd taken a different shoe for that middle section, I think is what I'm saying.
Go on, Mike.
I mean, it was that kind of max stack super trainer that wasn't much of a super trainer. Although I spoke to someone
Wasn't
recently,
very super, was it?
I spoke to someone recently who did Brighton Marathon, and that was the choice that they went for. And I was like, I mean, that wasn't the shoe I would have recommended. But I remember just taking it out for a track session, expecting it to. And I just remember getting to the end of that session and it just feeling so heavy and so. And I think that, obviously these max stack kind of super trainers are here. We've got the Prime X2, we've got the Skyward X, so there are shoes and they're examples of it being executed really well. So I think this shoe can work. I think it needs a lot of work. And I think that, they would have listened to the feedback. And I think that to have something that can better partner or be an equivalent or alternative to things like the Speed for those lighter kind of less kind of lower stack kind of cushion compared to something like Kinvara Pro. I think there's room for it. It's just it definitely needed work. It almost like back to the drawing board for me because it wasn't really a Kinvara and it really wasn't a shoe that stood out for the right reasons.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shoe that's confused me more over the past couple of years than the Kinvara Pro. I don't know. I don't know why it is called Kinvara. I don't know why what it was designed for. I don't know why they used that foam in it. The only thing I can think of with the Kinvara Pro is that we talked about this with Nick on the video the other day. We're all pretty much the same weight, so maybe there's something about that foam that I'm just not getting from it. But to me, it just felt like a big clunky clog. And I raced in it. I just didn't get anything from it. So out of all these shoes we've discussed, I think this is the one that's probably likely to see the biggest changes based on what they did before. And if they want to make it more like a Super Blast or something like that, they've got a lot of work to do to make it a versatile shoe that's fun to run easy and fast sessions in. All right, I think that'll do us for now. I've got loads more, so we can probably do another podcast on these if people actually listen to this. But I will just caveat again, all the stuff we've spoken about in this video, we don't know anything about. So all of this is purely conjecture based on our knowledge of the existing shoes and what we want to expect from these shoes. So as soon as we know about them, as soon as we can talk about these shoes in the future, we will let you know on the channel. But at the moment, we're just shooting from the hip, basically. Right. Catch you guys later.
See you later.
That's it from us. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the little bell, and if you go into the caption below, you can find a link to the podcast version of this podcast, as well as all the other podcasts that we release on a twice monthly basis. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.